You might not know the name BlackRock, but its influence is closer than you think. It's right there in your wallet. Its decisions are quietly shaping your retirement account, the value of the home you might live in, and the very companies you and I work for every single day. This is the story of the most powerful company you've probably never heard of, and how it has constructed a system that silently directs your financial world. What if I told you there's a single firm that manages more money than the entire economy of any country on Earth, except for the US and China? A company that didn't just survive the 2008 financial crisis, but was actually hired by the US government to clean it all up. A company whose proprietary software acts as the central nervous system for a huge portion of the entire global financial system. This isn't some back-alley conspiracy theory you'd find in a forgotten corner of the internet. This is the documented story of BlackRock, and the reality of its power, influence, and sheer scale is more staggering than you might imagine. BlackRock's story begins in 1988, founded by a man named Larry Fink and 7 partners. Fink, a pioneer in a complex market for mortgage-backed securities at First Boston, had experienced a humbling professional setback. In 1986, after his department misjudged interest rates, it lost a staggering $100 million. That painful experience became the driving motivation for his new venture, a firm that would be built from its very foundation on mastering risk management. What started as a small bond-focused asset manager under the umbrella of the Blackstone Group quickly grew. It spun off to become its own entity, BlackRock, in 1994. The firm snowballed through a series of smart, strategic acquisitions that the game changer came in 2009 with the purchase of Barclays Global Investors. That single deal gave them iShares, a family of exchange-traded funds, or ETFs, that would become the rocket fuel for their astronomical ascent. By the end of 2024, that growth had culminated in a record-breaking $11.6 trillion in assets under management. To truly wrap your head around that number, imagine the entire economies, the gross domestic product of Germany, Japan, and the United Kingdom. Now, combine them. BlackRock manages more than that total. But here's the crucial distinction. They don't own this wealth. They manage it on behalf of millions of people, from pension funds and university endowments to everyday individuals with a 401k. When you invest in one of their funds, you are the technical owner of the underlying stocks or bonds. But BlackRock acts as the powerful custodian, the steward, managing those shares on your behalf. And that distinction is the absolute key to their immense and often invisible power. The real secret to BlackRock's unprecedented dominance is the incredible decades-long rise of something called passive investing. For most of modern financial history, if you wanted to invest, you'd put your money in an actively managed fund. In these funds, a highly paid manager and their team of analysts would handpick stocks they believed would outperform the market. The problem? Study after study has shown that over the long term, the vast majority of them fail to do so. Passive investing offered a brilliantly simple and powerful alternative. Instead of trying to beat the market, why not just buy the market? By creating low-cost index funds and ETFs that simply track an entire market index like the well-known S&P 500, firms like BlackRock, along with their main rivals, Vanguard and State Street, made investing cheaper, more accessible, and more reliable than ever before. It was nothing short of a revolution. Where passive funds owned just a small fraction of the stock market a couple of decades ago, that ownership has exploded. This flood of global capital didn't spread out evenly. It became highly concentrated in the hands of those few giants. Today, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, often called the Big Three, are the largest institutional shareholders in a staggering 88% of the companies in the S&P 500. Their combined ownership in corporate titans like Apple or Microsoft often totals between 15% and 20%. And here's where their power becomes tangible. Even though they're managing these shares for millions of other people, they are the ones who get to vote at the annual shareholder meetings. This is called proxy voting power. With that power, they cast votes on absolutely critical issues: who gets a seat on the board of directors, how much executives are paid, and whether a company should adopt a new climate strategy. So while your retirement account might own a tiny sliver of 1,000 different companies, it's BlackRock that is sitting at the table, casting the votes that steer the direction of corporate America. A stunning real-world example of this power came in 2021. A tiny, newly launched activist hedge fund called Engine No. 1, which owned a mere 0.02% of ExxonMobil, launched an audacious campaign. They argued the oil giant wasn't taking climate change seriously enough and nominated 4 new members to its board to force a change. On its face, the effort seemed impossible, but then BlackRock, one of Exxon's largest investors, put its weight behind the activists, backing 3 of the 4 new nominees. With BlackRock's support, the impossible campaign succeeded, and 3 new directors were installed on Exxon's board against the company's explicit wishes. It was a watershed moment that proved BlackRock's vote could fundamentally alter the future of even the world's most powerful corporations. But if you think their power stops at trillions in managed assets and decisive proxy votes, you've only seen one layer of their influence. The true hidden force multiplier behind BlackRock is a proprietary technology platform called Aladdin. The name itself is an acronym: Asset, Liability, and Debt and Derivative Investment Network. Aladdin's origins go all the way back to 1988. It was created as BlackRock's internal risk management system, the very tool Larry Fink had envisioned to avoid repeating the trading losses of his past. It evolved into a massive, sprawling network that analyzes global markets, runs complex stress tests, and simulates the potential impact of nearly any imaginable crisis, from a new pandemic to a major bank failure or a sudden change in climate policy. But here's the unbelievable twist. BlackRock doesn't just use this incredibly powerful tool for itself. They license it for a significant fee to hundreds of other financial institutions. Competitors, major banks, vast pension funds, insurance companies, and even central banks like the US Federal Reserve all use Aladdin to monitor their own portfolios. Take a moment to let that sink in. Through Aladdin, BlackRock has a real-time window into the aggregated risk exposure of a significant portion of the entire global financial system. It's like having a crystal ball that doesn't just see your own portfolio, but also provides an unprecedented level of insight into the positions and risks held by your biggest competitors and even the government regulators tasked with overseeing the market. This gives BlackRock an information advantage that is truly unprecedented in the history of finance. This unique combination of massive assets, concentrated voting power, and an all-seeing technology platform has made BlackRock more than just a large company. It has made it systemically important. Nowhere was this clearer than during the 2008 financial crisis. As the global economy teetered on the absolute brink of collapse, who did the US government and the Federal Reserve call to analyze, manage, and price the toxic assets from failed giants like Bear Stearns and AIG? They called Larry Fink and BlackRock. And then it happened again. In 2020, as financial markets panicked during the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic, the Federal Reserve stepped in to stabilize the economy by buying corporate bonds. And who did they hire to be their agent and run this massive program? Once again, it was BlackRock. The firm was essentially acting as an arm of the Federal Reserve, managing the purchase of corporate debt, which at times even included BlackRock's own ETFs. One Cornell Law School professor noted that BlackRock is about as close to a government arm as you can be without being the Federal Reserve. This deep entanglement with the government has solidified BlackRock's position at the center of the financial world. But now, they're making another massive strategic shift. Seeing a future of slower growth in public markets, BlackRock is aggressively pushing into private markets, investing directly in things you can't buy on a stock exchange, like massive infrastructure projects, private companies, and real estate. In a landmark move, they announced the acquisition of Global Infrastructure Partners for $12.5 billion in early 2024, a deal that was completed later that year. This isn't just a side project, it's a strategic pivot to lock in new areas of growth and solidify their power for the decades to come. So, what does this all mean? The story of BlackRock is less about a single company being inherently good or bad, and more about the staggering implications of such a sheer concentration of power. The company is the logical end result of a financial system that overwhelmingly rewards enormous scale. Through the explosion of passive investing, BlackRock has amassed more financial power than arguably any single entity in history. It operates simultaneously as the planet's largest shareholder, the architect of its most vital financial software, the go-to crisis manager for the US government, and now a rapidly expanding force in the private markets that are reshaping our physical economy. The decisions made inside its offices create ripple effects that touch your pension fund, the strategies of the company you work for, and the stability of the global economy itself. This isn't a secret plot. It's a systemic reality. A staggering amount of power is now concentrated in the hands of one company, a company that, until now, you may have never even heard of. If you want to keep exploring the hidden forces and powerful systems that shape our world, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And let us know in the comments, what other financial giant should we investigate next?
Thanks for watching The Inner Margin. Like and subscribe.